Good afternoon. Hello. Hi. I'm actually really quite pleased that this is quite a small and intimate little crowd. Um, yes, come forward, come forward. Come forward and say hello. Want to join? The reason being is because actually this is the first time I've told this story in public. So, so I'm so far outside my comfort zone right now, I can't see it. Not that I don't present or anything like that, but normally this is not the topic I'm presenting on. So please bear with me because I have written down a few notes just to kind of keep me on track. But what I thought, or what I was asked to share today was my personal story, and my personal story of a fast growth startup, which I then dubbed 10 years in the making. So just so you understand a little bit about who we are and what we do is, so right now I describe myself as Chief Opportunity Officer, but titles are really all just made up anyway. But basically, I'm a part owner and day-to-day MD CEO of a company called Company Shortcuts. And what we do is we're a sales acceleration agency. We help businesses accelerate their sales growth by helping them implement a scalable sales engine and sales solution for their business. So typically we work with businesses that are between £2 and £20 million turnover, and the challenge that they're facing is how do they actually increase sales and scale up the profitable sales function that they need for their company. So that's what we do. We're having a phenomenal growth. I started, this is just January will be year 2. So just to give you some numbers, we've gone from 2 staff to 13. In 2 years, we're at 245% growth is our run rate. We hit our year-end target this year on the 2nd of September. Woohoo! And we're actually at the nice position now where we're actually holding income back to put over into next year. So that's all great, and that's all really positive, and that's all a nice little story. However, it doesn't start there, because actually, I first started my company 10 years ago. And it was the imaginatively titled Nicola Limited. It was 2004 when I started my first training company. Can you believe, by the way, I actually paid a marketing company to come up with that. They got $5,000 out of me for that. Don't tell me mother, she thinks she thought of it first. And I really kind of entered the market, as a lot of startups do, without really much idea. Just knew I kind of had something, wanted to be an entrepreneur, wanted to have my own business, wanted to be in charge of my own destiny. Didn't really have a plan, didn't really have an idea, but I was getting asked to help a lot of businesses, so that's what I started to do. And I realized very quickly that the model that I had wasn't going to work, because when you're just exchanging time for money, it's not very scalable. So within 18 months, we changed the name from Nicola Limited to Aurora Training, a Nicola company. I look back at that now and just go, how pretentious was that? But it was this idea that you're kind of fading one brand in and one brand out. But then also we decided a little bit further down that journey that we didn't really want to get labelled as just being a training company, so we finally went to our next brand, which was Aurora Consulting. Getting a bit more grown up now, you can kind of see the evolution here. It's quite good fun actually kind of digging out some of these old logos the other week and kind of going, God, remember that? So that started that journey in 2004. By 2006, we had a small team. We were really starting to get some traction. We had some really good clients. Things were going great. Growth. This is some old pictures I found of like our first office and some of the first team. You can tell that's 10 years old. Do you know how you can tell? Because look at the size of the laptop. Do you remember laptops that big? They should have just actually been called mobile computers, because they weren't laptops at all. And obviously I look a lot younger and fresher than I do now, and some of my original team and kind of some of the first services that we were delivering. But we started to get some good traction, and these were some of the clients that we had. So you can see some names up there that you can probably recognise. It was Northeast centric, so obviously we kind of hunted down all the decent sized businesses in the Northeast. Komatsu's based up there, Express Engineering and so on. And I was like, God, this is really kind of, I've got something here. I've got a good team. We were all on track. We were focused. We were moving. I also managed to bring my IP into the market. I got a couple of, within 3 years, I published 2 books. They did exceptionally well. They got translated into, I think it's about 11 languages, 16 countries, I think at the last count. So that's some of the off my bookshelf. If you can read them in Vietnamese, you're welcome to have them. Anyway, and it was all really, really, really looking good. And I thought, right, this is it. I've cracked it. I'm an entrepreneur. Here we are. We're in year 3, year 4 of like consistent growth. It's all going in the right direction. But I realise now that I was really, really, really lacking in some core skills, and that's the end of the story as to where I'm kind of the full circle that I've come to now. And that became really, really evident in the next year, because the next year, just kind of going back to that, I'll tell you the painful story. Get your violins out, right? Okay. Is we entered 2008 with a core team, good solid, well, I'm saying a good solid client base. We had some of those, like what I would call those like heroic clients, the brand names that you put out. But really the reality is the bread and butter of our business came from MMEs. And, we were writing business for, 5, 10, a 20 grand contract was quite a big deal for us. And we came into 2008 in January, did the highest level turnover we've ever done. February, same. March came along, we smashed the target again. I'm going, this is it, gang. We've hit the tipping point. It's all up, all that struggle the last 4 years. It's all kind of, it's just on the upward climb. And then April, May, June came along, and it was like someone switched off a hose pipe. And what had actually happened, and this is where I realise now where I was weak, was that in the Northeast particularly, in that market, the service-based industry, which obviously I'm in, is very, very heavily supported by government funding. So, quite frankly, this was a pain in my, I was going to say pain in my, a thorn in my side as far as my business was concerned, but it was kind of a necessary evil that we had to go through, because we would engage with a client, they would want to work with us, but because they could attract funding, up to say 50% funding, that was quite a big deal, and they would get that, from one of the business link services or so on. Is that we would lose complete control of the sale at that point, and we would have to introduce a business link advisor, or what I would like to call them is like a business link anti-sales advisor, who then basically takes the relationship forward. You have no dialogue with them, and you can't contract with your client direct until they've got the funding in place, and then they come back to you. And all of those timescales are all out of your control. And we had a really, really healthy pipeline going into 2008. And the fund that many of our clients were actually accessing at that time was coming to an end in June that year. And we were using that as a momentum gathering, a closing, like you've got to get your paperwork in, otherwise you're going to miss the pot. And then all these lovely anti-sales advisors went round and visited all of our clients in that sort of 12-week period over that quarter, and advised them very kindly, well, don't worry, because actually, let's not rush it. If you just want to hang on 6 months, we've got a new fund opening in January 2009, and we'll fund it then. And it was just like, literally hung us out to dry. And they just did not understand the impact of that in our business at the time. And sadly, that it didn't cost me the business, but it cost me a huge amount of money, because our sales just started to plummet. And having had such a buoyant growth period, a sustained growth period up to that point, I thought it was just a blip. I thought this is going to pass, we'll ride it out. We still had money in the bank, but after sort of 4 or 5 months of this, we were really, really starting to, feel the squeeze. And by that point, obviously, the business had no cash. And we were just starting to extend lines of credit wherever we could, cut back on costs as you would expect. And me and my poor dear husband made that choice about where we were starting to fund the business personally, and actually kind of go around and use our own credit to be able to cash flow payroll and so on. And then eventually, at the end of that year, I didn't lose the business, but I still had to make some really, really serious cuts and get rid of everybody. Oh my God, I'll never forget that day. There was a day I remember, it was at the end of September 2008, and I knew I was not going to be able to cover payroll. And that was the first time in my entrepreneurial career. And I stayed in bed all day. I just thought, I can't deal with it today. And then I think my husband actually pulled the duvet off and said, get out there and go and sort this out. And Yeah, there was some really, really rock bottom moments. There's more I could share with you. I remember the day where we were kind of literally using the last bits of credit that we had personally to go and buy Tesco vouchers so that we knew that we could at least buy food for the next like 6 weeks. You know, it was rough. It was really, really rough. So after kind of coming through that, you know, I sort of like regrouped and 2009 came along and I thought, right, okay, you know, I need a different model. I basically used a scalable model. The business model that I had previously was, I thought, you know, I needed people to be able to scale and to, you know, to create an asset and so on. And for the next few years, I really did feel quite bruised by that. And I thought, I don't want the risk, I don't want the hassle, I don't want the headache. Digital was starting to explode, connectivity was improving. I thought, I'm just going to go back to my good old-fashioned exchanging time for money model. I know it's not scalable, but hell, I earn a 95% profit margin on it, so stuff the lot of you. I'm just going to go out there, flog my arse off, deliver it, and make shed loads of money, which is what I did for the next few years. You know, banged out another baby in that time as well, so that kind of worked quite well. And then I was just at the point really, because within me I still had this desire, I still had this real want that, you know, I really want to grow a business, a real good global solid business. What I do with it after that is here nor there. But I come from a big corporate background, and I've also worked in, before I started my first company, I've worked in other companies where I've been a key part of the leadership and the management team that has helped them scale and grow right up to exit. I just haven't done it in my own company. So even though I was kind of like, you know, fiddling away in the Northeast, and I'd started developing products like this, you know, and that went out, and that was like a global launch of an online training program. I mean, you can see what the target audience that it was targeted at, you know, small, you know, sales secrets for small business owners and that kind of thing. And that was doing quite well. Is I just really felt that I hadn't quite achieved my full ambition. And then, actually, 2 years ago this month, this lady came ferociously charging back into my life, which, if any of you don't know, I mean, Lara Morgan is a very successful entrepreneur. She spoke earlier today and grew a global business through a successful exit. And I'd met her, actually, it was coming into 2008 was the first time I'd met her. And in fact, it was when my sales book was being published. And I heard her speak at a conference, and I remember thinking, God, your message is so on point with what I talk about. I felt like I'd met my mirror image. And my actual motivation was, I thought, and I'm having a testimonial out of you for the back of my new book, thanks very much. So that's what I went after. But what I now realise is that I was actually part of a sustained recruitment process that Lara had, and she had kind of earmarked me to take over this business, Company Shortcuts, that she had started at that point. So long story short is that she started a business called Company Shortcuts, that's the company there, after her successful exit, with the ambition of helping and inspiring UK businesses to accelerate sales, because let's face it, we're not very good at it in the UK, especially if you compare us to counterparts around the world and so on. So I remember I got this phone call from her. We'd had a bit of dialogue backwards and forwards about various things over the previous year, and she tracked me down and this kind of stuff. And then she just rang me up one day and said, "What's your diary like next week? I need a day. I'm coming to Newcastle." And I can remember thinking, holy shit. I had no idea what her agenda was. And she just sat down with me and said, "Look, I've got this business. You've got masses of IP. You've spent 10 years creating it, but you're hiding away in the north of England, which, let's face it, is not a particularly growth market at the moment. And, I've got a good success story. I've got this company, but I need somebody in to drive it. Are you up for it, basically? And if, I reckon together we could do something more powerful than me on my own. And if you come in, I'll give you half." So I kind of stopped and thought for a while, because I had a choice to make. It's like, basically, I own 100% of something that's worth gall at the moment, and I could now own 50% of something that's also worth all, but might have a better chance of going somewhere. So I took 6 months to do my due diligence, because I've also tried business partnerships before that haven't worked. They've just been a distraction, and they've cost me time and money. And remember, I've been bruised in the past and so on. And I remember I said, right, well, we'll put a stake in the sand, and if together we can achieve this figure in 6 months' time, I'm in. And it was the usual story where it was like, Friday afternoon, 30th of June, 3:00 in the afternoon, I'm on the phone closing the last deal that brought us to that number. And it was like, right, now I'm signing, I had no option at that point. So I came in and started to do, started to kind of really reshape the business and look at what we would do, what we had and what needed changing. I did a full, I literally, refined the marketplace and did all that stuff that you would do in a startup business. But obviously the great thing is that I now had 8 years experience of having done it myself. So that very, very quickly, we completely changed our offering, completely focused our market, put in place some key barriers to entry, started to build a team again, totally rebuilt all the IT platforms and all the systems behind it. And, I spent the first 12 months of the business really just peddling my wares and absolutely selling my little socks off. And obviously, hopefully now it's beginning to show. So that's all kind of that's like the good news story really, if you like. And that's the sort of story of where I was and where I went from and where I kind of came to be. But I suppose, and that's kind of the stuff that we do now. But I thought I would just summarize, and then I will take questions if anyone wants to, as when I look back now and I look at that kind of, that initial growth and then, the contraction and then the sustained growth again, and then obviously where we want to go in the future. And what did I learn? And because ultimately that's what it has to be. So I've put this into 3 categories. What did I think I did well? Where do I realise now, looking back, that my weaknesses were? And what did I really got? What is if I was going to take the lessons away and share them, please avoid doing this yourself. So what I did do well, even in my first business, was, I definitely feel like we had a great culture. I felt that we built a good team. My team would have walked to the ends of the earth. In fact, I made them walk on fire and hot coals on Newcastle Quayside, just to kind of prove that they were really committed. No word of a lie. We did a charity fire walk, but they all had to do it. As we organised it and everything. By the way, do you know how much insurance it takes to light a fire on the quayside in Newcastle? It's like trying to get public liability insurance for that. But anyway, so we really did have a really great culture, and I suppose that shows now, because actually some of those team have come back to me, but also everybody who's ever worked for me is still in contact with me. They may not be working for me, they've got their own careers now or businesses or whatever, but we're still really, really all good friends. I definitely thought we could sell. We had a good skill set. We did, we developed some amazing IP that we delivered really well, and we created a good reputation and a good solid brand in our marketplace at the time. So that was all the stuff that we did well. Where do I realise that my weaknesses were? Well, there's 2 actually. So the first one is I've put in, I've just said there that I felt that I built a good team and I can build culture and so on, is that I've put down here hiring, in inverted commas, the right team. Because especially when you're growing, you make one wrong hire and that can just drain so much of your time and energy and resource. And I've got 2 quick stories that I'll share about that. The first one is I'm now currently onto my 4th accountant. Sorry, Malcolm. But, especially if they're not, these suppliers that are working with you in your businesses, you've really got to be able to trust them. And actually, accountant number 2 I took to court and won. But even just the process of doing that was so time consuming and draining and so on. So I would definitely say, the age-old adage, hire slowly and fire quickly. Whether that's, your own employed team or your supply team. Because there will initially be services that you need that you will be buying in from outside. If they're not right, get rid. I did too much of this. Too much of it's going to work out, that it's going to come good. The other horror story I've got was about, if you hire cheap, you get cheap. And I took on a young girl in our office who had come from a college. Not that I disagree with that, because I absolutely advocate that. And she was one of these kind of they do a day release. They do 4 days with you and then they go back to college and do a day, and she was doing a qualification of some kind. And she kind of trundled on in the office and we found work for her to do, and, we helped her kind of develop. And then a course came to the end, and, obviously she was looking for a job. And I said, I gave her the opportunity and said, okay, well, you know the business now, you know what you can do, but, you're about to go on proper money, none of this £80 a week malarkey. you're going to start earning your way. And, here's the role definition, and, you're going on a 13-week probation period or whatever. And she just absolutely wasn't up to it. But then what happened was I sat down with her like halfway through this probation period, and I was about to say to her, the best you're going to hope for at this level is an extension of your probation period, because you're just not cutting the mustard. And in that meeting, she turned around and announced that she was pregnant. And it was a real, it was like, yay! But the legal advice I was given at the time was, even though she was still technically within her probation period of her full-time contract, because she'd worked within the company for 12 months prior, even in a student role, the argument could be made that if I didn't offer her employment at the end of her probation, that I was basically just getting rid of her because she was now pregnant. That cost me not only the salary and so on, and then she went on maternity leave, and then that was a friggin' nightmare and all that stuff. Anyway, and my gut instinct was I should never have kept her anyway. I should never have kept her. So, when it comes to people, you have to be ruthless. They've got to, hire for aptitude, and you can train the skills and all that kind of stuff. And the team that we've got now are exactly those kinds of people. Again, I'm pleased to say that the culture we've got is amazing. I mean, I was literally sitting writing emails at 10 to 12 the other night, and 2 of my team members were responding back, to the point that I had to literally write back to them and go, please, will you cough and go to bed? I'm trying to clear my inbox. I don't want any more emails back tonight, But if people are literally working that hard for you, then you've got a good culture. So hiring the right people. The other thing that I realised that I wasn't very good at was actually the financials. And when I mean that is, I can read a balance sheet. I can read a P&L. I can sell. And so on. But what I didn't understand in my business was the real core trend KPIs in terms of, the cash position and the implications of what we were doing now, or what was happening in the business now, and what that was going to mean in 3 or 4 months' time. And I know I'm looking at Malcolm and he's going. And I learned the hard way. I really learned the hard way. And what did I really, really spectacularly stuff up? Because it, was getting. I've kind of summarised. These are my last 2 points. Is not just spotting the trends and acting on them, because I did spot the trend. I wasn't stupid. I did see what was happening. But what I realised I didn't address was we needed a strategic shift. And I didn't do that. I took the mindset of let's all just work harder. And if we work harder and we push this water uphill even harder, eventually we're going to reach the top and it's all going to be all right. And actually what I should have done at that point there was either take some external advice, some really solid grey-haired advice, and go, actually, what is the outlook for this business in the next 12 months? Because the market that you were in is no longer there, and and so on. So I would put strategy at that time was a hard lesson for me to learn. And then the final point, which is my kind of last will to you if you're on this journey yourself, is when I look back now and I think, why didn't I act? Why didn't I act earlier so it didn't cost me quite so much? Is I realise now how much of my ego was wrapped up in this. And just to add insult to injury, I had just been crowned Northeast Woman Entrepreneur of the Year, and suddenly I'm now trying to save a business that's going downhill. And after I had to take the really, really tough decisions and let the good people go and all that kind of stuff, after another duvet day where I just didn't want to get out of bed, and I finally got a phone call from a friend of mine who's also in business, and she went, come on, we're going for a drink. And I went out that night and I was literally crying into my beer, and I went and I was like, but I just wanted to be the entrepreneur that had the story that I started a business and it grew and grew and grew, and I never had to let anybody go. And she went, yeah, but you wouldn't be the entrepreneur that you are just about to become. And I thought that was a nice thing for her to say. But also, what I realise now is that my delay in making those decisions was the fear of what would other people think, not what actually really needed to be done in the business. And the minute I got rid of that, we just went, it turned a corner. So, and I realize now how much my ego and my idea of kind of, I had to give this outward impression all the time that, everything was okay, we're all successful. And the reality is that in businesses, all you're doing is you're dealing with problems all day, every day. The bigger the business, the bigger the headaches. But, I hope in some way there may be some inspirational notes that have been shared in that. As I say, come back tomorrow, and I'll be talking about how you can grow and scale your sales engines in your company. I'll be back inside my comfort zone, but that's the story really of a fast growth startup 10 years in the making. So thank you very much. I don't know, has anyone got any questions? You're all being British. Yes, go for it. Well, there's always the usual challenges, as in competition and finding your unique point of difference, and really nailing that so that you really focus on it and deliver that as part of your message. And the biggest challenge that we had, which to some extent we still have, is in a service-based business. Service-based businesses are notoriously difficult to scale. So it's about really packaging and understanding your IP and your content and how that can be scaled through a variety of delivery models. And it took me a while to work that out. So my initial strategy was basically to earn more. All I could do was either put my rates up or work more hours in the day. And ultimately that's a lifestyle business, and that wasn't what I wanted. So there was that part of it, but then obviously, what effectively happened was that there was a shift in the market. A very, came out of nowhere, really severe. I hadn't de-risked the business, so because we were on an upscale. So if I was to do it differently, I certainly wouldn't have based myself just in one effectively geographical market or one core channel. I would have found ways of de-risking the business, which is one of the reasons why, my business partner Lara, who talks about global and going exporting, that's the benefit of having a business that's much more spread, because then you can actually, if one market's going down, another market can pick up. And I basically had all my eggs in one basket. So, and that was ultimately, that was the hard lesson to learn. By the time Aurora, we had 10. So it was, it wasn't a massive business, but we were on the fast growth program. We were one of the fast growth stories in the Northeast at the time, and we had a good reputation. You saw the clients that we had, so we had a good name and things. So, yeah, welcome. Anybody else? Are we going to close? Okay, thank you very much.